Hello and welcome to the Unit 1 Section 2 video on solving multi-step equations. So in the last section we talked about 1 and 2 step equations, and that's kind of our introduction into solving equations. Remember, our goal in solving equations is to get the variable on one side of the equal sign by itself, and then we want to get the value for that variable on the other side. So all we're doing is we're trying to get the variable by itself, and what we have to do is reverse operations. So if we are multiplying by a variable, we have to divide that number we're multiplying off, okay? And we'll do more examples in this section to get you more used to that. So we're moving on to multi-step equations, and it's really going to be not that much different than what we did in 1 and 2 step equations. We're just ramping it up to where it takes more steps to do this, and we're going to include concepts like combining like terms and using the distributive property. So let's start off by reviewing combining like terms. So you may recall that when we combine like terms, we want to find terms that have the same features. So in this first one we have 5x and we have negative 7x. Remember, if there is a minus sign in front of a term, you have to include that negative. Okay, so we can combine the 5x and the negative 7x. 5 minus 7 gives us negative 2, and we have the x on the end. Then we look at our other terms. We have positive 3 and negative 1. So here we're doing 3 minus 1, and that gives us plus 2. So when we combine our like terms, we're just putting things together. For number 2, we have a negative 3a and we have a negative 1a. Remember, if there's no number in front of the variable, that number is understood to be 1. So negative 3a minus a 1a gives us a negative 4a. And then we have three numbers, three constants that have no variables in them. We have 7, we have 8, and we have 2, and they're all positive. So we have 7 plus 8, which is 15, plus another 2 gives us 17. So now that we have reviewed that, let's take a look at some equations that can be solved by combining like terms. So for the first one, we have negative 5a on this side, and we have a 2a. So negative 5 plus 2 is going to give us negative 3a. And then we have the plus 8. So nothing combined with this 8, so we just bring this along for the ride, and we do minus 10. Now I do want to bring up one thing, and I found that a lot of you find this helpful when you're trying to do simple math in your head. You are always welcome to use the calculator, but some of these things you don't really need a calculator because they're on the simpler side, okay? Larger numbers, you definitely want to use a calculator. But here, negative 5 plus 2. Think of it this way. Money talks, okay? A lot of you know how to deal with money, especially when people owe you money. So look at it this way. I owe you $5 and I pay you back $2. So how much do I still owe you? I still owe you $3, and because I still owe you $3, we have the negative sign in front of it, okay? So think of it in terms of money. You know when people owe you money and they don't pay you back enough, how much they still owe you. Think of it like that, and that'll help you out with the math. You're more likely to get the math correct if you think about it like it's money that's owed to you, because you're not going to forget a single dollar that's owed to you. All right, from here we're talking about a two-step equation like we did in the last section. So we have 8 here on this side. Remember, we're trying to get the a by itself. So we got to get the stuff without a off of this side first. So we're going to subtract 8 from each side. And when we do that, we get negative 3a equals negative 18. Remember, I owe you $10, then I borrowed $8 more from you. So now I owe you $18. So I'm negative 18 here. And then we divide each side by negative 3. And remember, negative divided by a negative is going to give us a positive, and that's going to be positive 6. So a equals 6. All right, let's do one more example in depth. So we have a 6 here and a 3 here. This is the only term in the middle. This negative 3v is the only term that has a v in it. So it's going to be brought along for the ride. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and write that one down. Usually we lead with our variable term. Then we've got 6 plus 3. That's going to give us 9. And now we're going to subtract 9 from each side. This one's a little bit easier because 0 minus 9 is going to give us negative 9. And then we divide each side by negative 3. And we're left with v equals 3. Negative 9 divided by negative 3 gives us a positive 3. Okay, for the last examples on this page, I'm going to just go ahead and go through the steps, but I'm not going to go through the details quite as thoroughly as I did with the first two, okay? But I am going to tell you what we're doing in each step. So in the first step here, we've got combining like terms, so we've got 4n and 4n, so it gives us 8n. And then the minus 4 gets brought down, and we've got 20 on the other side. And then we add 4 to each side, and that gives us 8n equals 24. And then we divide each side by 8, and we're left with n equals 3. For number 4, we've got combining like terms, two 4x terms, two negative 4x terms. So we're going to do negative 8x plus 5, because that's our 5 right here, equals 5. We're going to subtract 5 from each side. That leaves us with negative 8x equals 0. And yes, you can do 0 divided by negative 8. And 0 divided by anything, it's just going to give you 0. All right, number 5. We've got just the one term on this side. On the other side, we've got negative 7p by itself, but we have negative 8 plus 1, so that's going to give us negative 7. We add 7 to each side, and that's going to give us negative 14 equals negative 7p. And then we divide each side by negative 7, and that leaves us with p equals 2, or 2 equals p. Same thing. For number 6, we have 20 equals 8n, which is by itself. 3 plus 1 gives us 4. Subtract 4 from each side, and that gives us 16 equals 8n. Divide each side by 8, and n equals 2 in this one. For number 7, we have a negative 6n minus another n gives us negative 7n, plus 1 equals 15. Subtract 1 from each side. You get negative 7n equals 14. Divide each side by negative 7, and you're left with n equals negative 2. And then finally, number 8, negative 7x plus 5x. That together is going to give us negative 2x plus 1 equals negative 5. We subtract 1 from each side. Make my minus signs a little bit better. We got negative 2x equals negative 6. And then we divide each side by negative 2. And so x equals 3. All right, so now let's review the distributive property, because this is another property you're going to find in multi-step equations. So remember, if you have a number outside of a parentheses, we are multiplying. So we're multiplying this 2 by the x minus 3. If we're going to distribute this 2 to each of these terms, we have to multiply it by each of these terms, okay? So we're going to do 2 times x, which gives us 2x, and 2 times negative 3, which gives us negative 6. For 2, we've got negative 3 times x, so that's negative 3x. Then negative 3 times 4 gives us negative 12. 5 times 2x gives us 10x. 5 times 1 gives us 5. And then negative 4 times 3x gives us negative 12x. And negative 4 times negative 7 gives us positive 28. So remember, when you're multiplying things and dividing things, be very, very, very careful about your signs. Remember, positive times a positive gives you a positive. Positive times a negative, or negative times a positive, gives you a negative. And negative times a negative will also give you a positive. Okay? So let's do a few equations that require distributive property. So for number 1 here, we have 300 on this side, and we're going to distribute the right-hand side. So 6 times 7r gives us 42r, and then 6 times 1 gives us 6. Now we can subtract 6 from each side. We should be getting a little bit more comfortable with doing this. And you get 294 equals 42r. Now this one, yes, go for your calculator for this one, because we're dividing each side by 42, and we're dividing 42 into 294. These are some fairly big numbers. Use your calculator for this, and you're going to find you're going to get 7 equals r. Remember, when you put this in your calculator, you're doing 294 divided by 42. Make sure you put it in the correct way. If you're getting a decimal for something like this, then chances are it's incorrect. Not that we can't get decimals for answers, but most of what I'm going to give you, at least for now, will be a whole number. Okay, so if it's not coming out to be a whole number, double check your work. Make sure you're putting everything in your calculator correctly. Make sure you're doing all the correct subtractions and stuff, because I've seen a few of you add where you should have subtracted on each side. Okay, so make sure everything is correct step to step. Okay, be very careful about how you do this. All right, number 2, we got negative 112 on this side. Negative 7 times 8 gives you negative 56. Negative 7, and I went a little too fast putting that plus sign, because negative 7 times 8 gives you negative 56p. Remember, you want to do this stuff in pencil, because there will be mistakes. I just made a mistake, and I've been doing this for years. So remember, when you're doing your work, use pencil so you can erase. And when you erase, please make sure you erase completely. All right. We're going to add 56 to each side, because we want to get p by itself. So negative 112 plus 56 is going to give us negative 56. We have negative 56p on this side. And this time around, I don't think you need your calculator for this one. Negative 56 divided by negative 56 gives you 1. Okay, let's move on to the other examples on this page. I'm going to go through these 4 a little bit more quickly. Here we're distributing, so we have negative 8 times 2b gives us negative 16b. Negative 8 times negative 3 gives us positive 24, and that equals 152. Subtract 24 from each side, and we get negative 16b equals 128, and then we divide each side by negative 16. And we get b equals negative 8. For number 4, 8 times 1, that's going to be 8. 8 times 8 gives us 64, so we have 64n equals 136. Subtract 8 from each side, and that's going to give us 64n equals 128. And then divide each side by 64, and you get n equals 2. For number 5, 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 4 is 20, so we get 20n equals negative 155. Subtract 5 from each side, we get 20n equals negative 160. Remember, be very careful when you're doing subtraction. I owe you $155. I borrow $5 more from you. I owe you $160 now. All right, now we're going to divide this by 20. And you're going to get n equals negative 8. And then finally, number 6, the distributing is going to happen on this side. Negative 5 times positive 7 is negative 35. Negative 5 times negative 3 gives us positive 15x, because negative times a negative is a positive. We're going to add 35 to each side. So we get negative 120 equals 15k. And we divide each side by 15. And we're going to get negative 8 equals k. So there's all of those examples for you. Now, sometimes you have to simplify more than once when solving an equation. So follow these couple of rules. Always distribute first. Okay? Then you're going to combine like terms. Then after you do those two things, you'll start moving things from one side to the other. So let's take a look at this example. 8 times 1 is 8. We're distributing first. 8 times negative 6 is negative 48. So that gives us negative 48n. Then the 7n sticks around. And then we have negative 156 on the other side of the equals. Now we're going to combine these like terms. So that gives us 8 minus 41n equals negative 156. And now we move things from one side to the other. So we have 8, subtract 8 from each side. And that gives us negative 41n equals negative 164. Then divide each side by negative 41. Use your calculator to help you out here, and you get n equals 4. So that's your first example for problems like this. Let's do a few more. So for number 1 here, we have negative 84 on this side. On the other side, we have 4 minus something we have to distribute. So negative 4 times 3b gives you negative 12b. Negative 4 times 1 gives you negative 4. Now we're going to combine like terms. We've got 4 minus 4 on this side. So 4 minus 4 gives you 0, so we don't even have to write that. We're just left with negative 12b on this side. And then we're going to divide each side by negative 12. And negative 84 divided by negative 12, you put that in your calculator, and I think you're going to get 7. All right, let's take a look at number 2. We're going to distribute first. Negative 3 times negative 4 gives you positive 12. Negative 3 times 2 gives you negative 6. And then this x is not part of what we're distributing, so we just put it along for the ride. 12x plus x gives you 13x. Minus 6 equals negative 97. Now we're going to add 6 to each side. Bring our 13x down. Negative 97 plus 6. That's going to give us negative 91. And then we divide each side by 13. And so we have x equals negative 7. Again, calculator, not a bad thing to use in these pieces of math that have a little bit bigger numbers in them. All right, number 3. Let's see what we have for number 3 here. So we have negative 95 equals negative 5. Now we're going to distribute here. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Negative 5 times negative 5 gives us positive 25n. Okay, positive 25n is by itself. We're going to combine the other two like terms. Negative 5 minus another 15 gives you negative 20. We're going to add 20 to each side. And that's going to give us negative 75 equals 25n. Now think about money this way. We're dividing each side by 25. How many quarters does it take to make 75 cents? That would be 3. And it's going to be negative because it got negative divided by a positive. All right, number 4, we got 139 equals 3 times, we're going to, or 3 minus, we're going to distribute here, minus 24n. Negative 8 times 1 gives us negative 8. Combine our like terms. 3 minus 8. So I owe you $8. I give you 3. So I still owe you $5. So we've got negative 24n minus 5. Okay, combining the 3 and the negative 8. We're going to add 5 to each side. That's going to give us 144 equals negative 24n. Divide each side by negative 24. And I believe we're going to get negative 6 as our answer. All right, for number 5, we have negative 5 minus negative 2 times 8x plus 6. So the negative 5 isn't part of this, but we do distribute the other parts. So negative 2 times 8 gives us negative 16x. Negative 2 times 6 gives us negative 12. Now we're going to combine our like terms. Negative 5 minus another 12. That's going to give us negative 17. Add 17 to each side. And we get negative 16x equals negative 128. And then divide each side by negative 16. That's going to give us a positive answer. And that positive answer is x equals 8. For number 6, very similar to the one we just did, this negative 6 is by itself. 7 times 8 gives us 56. V. 7 times 7 gives us 49. And then 49 minus 6, that's going to give us 43. That's combining our like terms. Oops, can't forget the V. 56V plus 43. Now we're going to subtract 43 from each side. 56V equals 112. Divide each side by 56. And we get V equals 2. And 2 more examples to wrap up this section. Let's take a look at number 7 and number 8. All right, we have 2 things to distribute in these. So these are a little bit more difficult, but not by much. So let's start with this piece. We've got negative 7 times 1, which gives us negative 7. Negative 7 times p, which gives us negative 7p. Then we move on and distribute the next piece. Negative 2 times 2 gives us negative 4p. And then negative 2 times negative 5 gives us positive 10. Remember, be very careful about your signs as you go through. Now we've got 2 things to combine, 2 like terms, okay? So let's start with our p's. We got negative 7p minus 4p. All together gives us negative 11p. Then we have 2 terms without variables. Negative 7 plus 10, which is going to give us plus 3. And then from here, we're just going as normal. Subtract 3 from each side. That gives you negative 11p equals negative 66. And then divide by negative 11 on each side. And we get p equals 6. All right, number 8, same thing. We're going to distribute 2 separate things. So 4 times x gives us 4x. 4 times 7 gives us 28. And then we move on to here. Negative 5 times 7 gives us negative 35x. Negative 5 times 8 gives us negative 40. We're going to combine our like terms. We'll do this all together. Negative 35x plus 4x is going to give us negative 31x. And then 28 minus 40 gives us negative 12. Again, if you need to use your calculator to make sure you're doing these right, to make sure you're getting the math right, use your calculator. It is not bad to double check your work using a calculator to make sure everything is good from step to step. All right, from here we're going to add 12 to each side. That leaves us with 0 equals negative 31x, and I think you can see where this is going. Divide each side by negative 31, you still got 0 over on this side. So 0 equals x. All right, that's going to conclude this section on solving multi-step equations. In the next section, we're going to talk about solving equations with variables on both sides.